Hello, everyone. This is David Ellis, and I'm back once again with Yeorgo Traiforos. I keep pronouncing that the wrong way, I'm sure. Yeorgo is a financial advisor, and he's here to talk to us about your financial health. Yeorgo, introduce yourself to the audience.
Thanks, David, for hosting again. I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Yeorgo Traiforos. I'll say that really slow, the last name. So it's Traiforos, not five, not three, but Traiforos. I'm a financial advisor. I've been in the financial services industry for 26 years. I'm still learning every day, but I have a wealth of knowledge that I'm really hoping I can share with people who need some help and advice and just help them along their journey.
Excellent. There's a number of things that we want to get into today. We have a couple of graphics that we're going to be sharing with you guys in a while. But off the top of my head, planning your financial future, your financial health and wellness is a very important thing. I'm going to say this. Just a couple of days ago, actually, yesterday, we had a hailstorm in Regina. How many people are going to be calling SGI at this point in time? Compounding horrible financial situation with, nature's little interventions like this. And so this is why it's important to plan your financial future and your life. Okay, Yeorgo, what can you tell us about the holistic approach to financial planning?
I think that most of us realize, and your hail example is a perfect example, is we don't live in a vacuum. We live in an interactive world. We interact with other people, in this case with nature, and we have to build financial strength and financial resiliency to weather the storm. So yesterday's hailstorm is a terrific example. I've already had contact starting last night with several clients needing to take some money out of their tax-free savings account or some sort of vehicle to pay for their SGI deductible for their insurance to cover something, and hopefully it was limited to car insurance and not also home damage and other property damage. But when we look at things holistically rather than just one item at a time, we start to get a clearer picture because as I said, we don't live in a vacuum. We live in this interactive world where no matter how much we plan, things happen to us. I'm not talking about, things that are under control, but things that are not under control, like the weather. But if we're in a good financial place, if we have financial health, then dealing with something such as a massive hailstorm, while it's still potentially devastating, especially in the moment, it shouldn't be something that devastates your finances.
Correct. And I think a lot of people are in a very peculiar position. So a lot of people woke up to find multiple dents in their vehicles and so on. And they're thinking, yeah, well, insurance is going to cover it. And then there are some people who are thinking, I just got to meet the deductible. And then you see, here's the thing. Depending on how well you've planned your finances, you're either going to be highly stressed or relaxed enough or calm of mind enough to know that this is just one thing that has happened and I will survive this. And a lot of people are in that iffy category right now. Okay, you have given me a graphic. I want to put it up on screen so that people can get a general idea of what we're talking about here. Yeorgo, please explain what we're looking at right now.
So I like to call this pie chart the balanced portfolio of life. So usually I meet with clients just about that one piece of that pie, right? So 1/8 of the pie, which is the money chart. And so especially when I meet with clients for the first time, people think that we're only going to talk about money. And I've found again, my 26 years of doing this, and it was 12 years ago, 2014, when I started DNY Financial, which is my own financial services company, that I changed to using this model exclusively. if I deal with someone in just money and say, David, you came in here and you just said, I want, to start saving $500 a month, and because one day I want to retire, and I said, okay, sure, let's do that. But I don't ask you any of the other details. You're just a number to me. You almost don't even have a face. So when I look at things holistically, it all starts to make sense. So I don't want to know just the $500 a month. I want to know everything about you as the person. Who is David? What motivates David? What is David's purpose?
Mm-hmm.
David learning about? How is his health? And all of this is still an oversimplification. Of course, each piece of the pie divides again and again, but ultimately, when I'm working with a client, and I do like to use this chart pretty much with every meeting, is the conversation I have with you, the client, or Jane, the client, whoever it is, should be, to simplify it, let's say it's an 8-hour conversation. 1 hour is about money. We need to talk about the rest of life, because again, you don't live just about money. Money is a tool that is going to make the rest of the pieces of that pie work. But I don't like looking at it as just an oversimplification. I want to look at it as, how is David's life? What can I do with David? How can I make sure he continues to play? And what is his work? Is his plan to retire, but only semi-retire and still work in retirement? There's just many things that conversation has to uncover.
Yes, a lot of people feel that way when they go to a financial advisor in a bank. I certainly have. Okay. And you get the feeling that it's a matter of numbers, right? So this holistic approach is something that is actually new to me. I want to break down these things because you said something very important there. You said that money is one of the cogs that makes everything work, and it's true from what I'm seeing here. Because without money, the health will steadily decline, either through stress or other means, right? And then I think that in terms of play and so on, you're going to need money for that as well. Okay. I'm thinking even in terms of giving back to your community, that involves a certain aspect of what can I afford to give back as well, even if it's in money or other such things. So explain what these cogs are in terms of how somebody should look at their financial life from the lens of a financial advisor, and how it fits into the general plan.
So if we talk about any one of them, so for an instance, at different parts of our life, we'll be out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is the perfect balanced situation that we're striving for, and maybe we never achieve for more than minutes or seconds or weeks at a time, we need to understand it. So if we take our 20s, for instance, or even our teens in our 20s, most of us want to expand that piece of the pie that says play. Mm-hmm. Right? We want to enjoy life a lot more, right? That's where we are. That's that rite of passage. We're going into adulthood. We want to play more. What we have to understand is the relationship between all of it is, we only have 24 hours in the day, or 7 days in the week, or how many days in the month, and 365 and a quarter days in the year, right? So if we expand one of those things, let's say play, for instance, we have to sacrifice something else within that wheel. So if we take play and money, it becomes pretty easy. Okay, well, I know if I want to, let's get into professional car racing. Well, I'm going to need a lot of money to play, mm-hmm. right? And then maybe playing, if I'm doing it professionally, playing and working becomes part of the same piece of the pie. So the more we talk about these things, and I've had 60-year-olds walk into my office for the first time and don't understand these relationships. So it's all interconnected. If we can start doing things in our life that is more holistically, terrific. That's hopefully where people get to. And I think we're in a better place in the world. We have more health practitioners, whether it's whether it's for physical health, whether it's for mental health, and more people are looking at life holistically, and that's wonderful. So if we look at things in this manner, and I'm not saying I'm qualified to help someone with all of the cogs, but I want to know how they're looking at the cogs and how improving their money situation can
Mhm.
help that other cog, right? So if we look at relationships, relationships suffer if one person in a relationship is working all the time to bring in the money and the other person is, flat broke, right? So they all have an interconnection. My piece of that puzzle is money and how money interacts with all of it.
Mhm.
But I'm not trying to say that I'm an expert at each one of those pieces, but I still want to have the conversation with each one of those pieces. So if you're a student, then that learning piece is vital, right?
Mhm.
But as a society, I think we've all, especially Western society, we've all realized that the quickest way to expand any one of those pieces is to let our health pie suffer and suffer and suffer, right? And get smaller and smaller. So that's not what we want to do. We want to live a balanced portfolio of life.
You know, and here's the things. I think that there's a lot of misinformation out there, coming from self-help gurus and such like. So one of the myths always is that money is the root of all evil, and we have a lot of misinformation where money is concerned. People have negative attitudes towards money. People tend to be distrustful of people who are wealthy, not realizing how they got there. And I think the distrust has a lot to do with a little bit of envy as well, um, especially in our society that we live in today. Okay. Um, Taking it even from a Marxist perspective, you say, oh, there's the proletariat and then there's the bourgeoisie. And what I'm looking at right now is a situation of balance. Now, I think when we started this podcast, I said when people say wealth management, people assume that you have to have wealth because the word comes with a certain amount of connotation in order to manage it in the first place, which actually stops them from actually going to a financial advisor because they're assuming that they need a certain amount of wealth. And based on this pie chart, once you have any kind of money, you can make those wheels work in certain kinds of parameters. So I suppose my first question would be, um, in terms of wealth management as opposed to financial advising, people tend to think of them as the same thing. Okay. And they say, well, I'm not a millionaire, so I'm not going to a financial advisor. Or somebody say, I'm not a millionaire, so I'm not going to a wealth management expert. What do you say to that?
Before we can have whatever it is that we individually consider wealth,
Uh-huh.
to be managed, we have to build it, right? So whether that's through a financial advisor, through a bank, whatever channel you've started at, the process is to start to build that piece of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you start paying attention, you'll realize is that some of those channels aren't for you. So a bank is typically speaking for somebody who wants to be completely hands off, I'll say, and they just want to leave everything to that bank person to do, and there typically isn't a whole bunch of education with it. Not every bank employee, but if you have that 5-minute meeting or you have that 30-minute meeting, you're not going to have as a fulsome conversation. So working with an independent financial advisor is going to be that next level on that journey. Is they're going to have more time for you. You're going to have more time for them. You're going to be taking that relationship more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll say the further part of that equation or the evolution is working with a wealth builder and a wealth management company. So a little bit of it is truthfully window dressing, We probably want to sound a little better. Maybe there's a little bit of ego involved there. But there is a separation, right? And so as a wealth builder and a wealth manager, I'm going to have more time for my clients. I'm going to have, and I don't want to say that a conversation is 8 hours. That was just a quick example. If that conversation is an hour and a half, I still want to have that fulsome conversation of that what's going on in your life. Hey, what are your what's going on with your parents' life? What's going on with your siblings' life? What's happening? How is that affecting you? How does that affect your view on money? So you brought it up. Some people think money is the root of all evil. I think the actual expression is the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yes.
So that is certainly a tough piece of pie to serve. If I found that if clients want money for the sake of money, I can't make them happy, no matter what I do. If I've made them $150,000 that year, they're wondering why I didn't make them 160. So I don't like working with clients who just want money for the sake of money. I want clients, and that's my choice at this point, right? I'm further on with my career. I get to pick and choose. I want clients to understand that piece of the pie is just a tool. We live in a society where goods and services are exchanged for money, and it's an easy exchange when we understand what that value is. And if someone says my services is X dollars, and you as the client says that's too much, that's easy to understand. We don't have to always negotiate things, right? So money is just a tool that should further those other 7 pieces of that puzzle.
Yes. So I wanted to ask a question. When it is that you have money on that pie chart and that area is out of balance for whatever reason, okay? Let's say the section that we're looking at with money shrinks dramatically, and then it unbalances just about everything else in the equation. And when you talk about money and you're talking about clients who have a particular motivation for going to a wealth manager, the concept of purpose becomes very important. So most people manage their finances effectively. It's not only to get themselves comfortable retirement, but they also manage their finances to help their children. Okay. And so how often is it that people come to you and say, it's not about me, it's about my kids?
I couldn't put a percentage on it, but I certainly can say that it's very often, especially as their kids get older.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are born, they go through that infant stage and that toddler stage, and your focus is so myopic and only on those kids. As they get older and they get going to school, and you start getting back to you realizing that the life does go on, a lot of people start saving for their child's education.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be from day one, but it's usually a pretty standard that is when that kid is 3 to 5 years old. As they start getting closer to school age, they start thinking, one day, if this kid does well, I want them to be able to go to school. I'm going to start saving for them. As we go on further and further, and especially as someone's health starts to suffer, or they get older in the age. So I'm 48 years old. Of course, I've started thinking about one day I won't be here, and I have to start doing some estate planning, and I want to provide for my daughter as best as possible. It's a absolute evolution of where you are in life and where you are on that journey. And then, of course, lots of people these days are choosing, or not, just by circumstances, are not having children. So that's obviously a totally different conversation as well.
Okay. All right. How much of the learn category on this pie chart is important for someone who is seeking advice from a financial advisor? Because there's a large component of your job that involves education.
Absolutely. I pride myself on running my business as a learning facility.
Hmm.
So I believe that if a client hasn't learned something from me each and every time that they've stepped foot in my office, or we have a Zoom call or even a telephone call, that I'm probably failing them in some capacity.
Hmm.
Knowledge is power, as money is power, but with knowledge and understanding, we start to remove fears. So when it comes to financial markets, financial different account types, all of those things, if you hear the word TFSA, if you hear the word RRSP, and now we have FHSAs, which is a first home savings account. We have all these different things. If you don't know what they mean and you don't have someone to explain it to you in terms you can understand,
Hmm.
or if you don't have the time to learn it, you're going to live in a place, I think, of fear, or at the very worst, it would be ignorance. And with ignorance, we just can't fill that money pie as much as we should if
Yeah.
we're not making the moves for the right reasons.
And of course, we have the concepts of work and work relationships, which are very important. You mentioned something about these financial products. Could you please explain them and explain what your company does? Because I have another graphic which I would like to share with the audience. I'm just going to put it up right now. And I hope, yeah, there we go. Um, Explain this graphic to me. It says optimize income portfolio versus 5-year GIC. Tell me about that.
Let's talk about the GIC first, which is on that graph. It's going to be the blue line that's very linear. It never goes down, it only goes up. Okay, it's a very smooth ride. There's no ups and downs. So the most common product that especially a bank is going to push on someone, or to say fits the bill, is going to be a GIC, which stands for a guaranteed income certificate. So a GIC is a guarantee of a certain percentage of money. So if you take $1,000 to a bank and you say, I want to invest this for 5 years, the bank is going to give you a guaranteed rate of return. So your principal is guaranteed. There's no chance of losing money, and your rate of return is guaranteed. It's locked in from the day you give them the money. So in this particular example, if we look at that rate of return, and it's in the middle of that graph underneath, the 5-year GIC, on it averaged over that time period, it averaged 2.08%.
Right here.
So I don't know if you can, oh, there example, it's a fairly large example. If you invested $1 million in 20, I think this is 2013. So you put it in September 30th, 2013. So your first day in the market is October 2013. Your $1 million after all those years is worth $1.28 million. In simpler terms, $1,000 is now worth $1,280.
Yes.
You annualized your return being 2.08%. You had no risk in the game. So this is considered to be a safe or very conservative investment vehicle.
Hmm.
There's no risk to it.
Hmm.
The problem that also exists is there's another side of, um, by the bank necessarily, or by someone just selling that safe investment, is that 2.08% did not keep up with inflation.
Ah,
So
ah,
you actually lost purchasing power by being conservative. So there is a risk. The risk is that you're not keeping up with inflation. And a GIC, whether it's a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, or 5 year product, they are guaranteed that you're going to get your principal back. There's the price is set, that rate of return is set by the Bank of Canada prime rate. It's a very direct connection. So if that bank rate is set by trying to keep inflation in check, that means your GIC is always guaranteed for you to either just break even, just lose a little bit of money, or just make a little bit of money in terms of real return. So 2.08% return is positive number. But if we take off inflation, which was probably closer to 2.5%, we've lost money in terms of real purchasing power. So this product, GIC, might be good for somebody who's 75 years old. They've already accumulated enough money. They don't want to have any risk whatsoever. They just want to protect their principal. So there is a place for it. Absolutely not saying there isn't a place for it, but there is better places to put your money. And this graph, if you want to just kind of move that up a little bit, this graph puts it against the optimized income portfolio, which is one of the, it's a managed product. So what that means is portfolio managers are constantly nudging and moving that product to be proactive in the marketplace. So that's set at 70% bonds. A bond is very similar to a GIC in that you have a set rate, and it's typically 30% equities or stocks in that portfolio. So you can see, and this isn't something to hide, there's obviously some fluctuations. There's volatility within that income portfolio. It's not a straight line. It definitely moves up and down in relation to what's going on with the market. An income portfolio would be for a low risk investor or a low to medium risk investor. So there is some fluctuations, as you can see, but the difference in that time period is very almost alarming. Is your $1 million, or let's just say $1,000, your $1,000 is almost worth $3,000 in that same time period. So at that just over 9% rate of return, you've kept up with inflation and you've actually made some money within your portfolio. So now we're starting to build wealth. So this might be for the novice investor because they don't understand a sophisticated product. But in this short amount of time, probably 5 minutes, I could explain to somebody and remove the fear of what's going on in that income portfolio and why they should probably be invested in something like that rather than the completely safe GIC, which doesn't protect their purchasing power.
Excellent. That's excellent. I want to throw a couple of scenarios at you if you don't mind. Is that okay?
Sure, please.
Okay, Yeorgo. I have won the lottery. Someone says you should totally go to Yeorgo. All right. I have won, I don't know, like $6 million. Someone says I should go to Yeorgo because based on my lifestyle, I want $6 million. People want to blow it on Ferraris and whatever else, right? And they want a certain amount of comfort. What percentage of that $6 million is a good place to start to invest with you?
A wonderful question. And it's, I can give you a kind of quick answer, but it's not going to be the right answer. The right answer is going to go back to that first pie chart.
Yes.
The right answer is going to be, we need to understand you, David, as what is your life? How can this $6 million serve those other pieces of that pie?
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you context.
One piece. Sorry, go ahead.
I know I'm going to give you context. Okay. The context is I'm a teenager. I'm 18 years old. All right. I won $6 million. So at a teenager's mind, the teenager like, yeah, the only thing they're looking at on that pie chart is that play area. Okay. They're not even, they definitely are not looking at the give back area. Well, depends on the teenager. They may not be looking at the purpose area, and health is not too much of a concern. And learn? I have $6 million. So from the immature mind, but my grandmother said, go to Yeorgo, because you're not going to have that $6 million long the way you're thinking about your life. What percentage would you suggest?
So we would have a serious conversation, and the first thing I would need to do with 18-year-old you who's just won the $6 million is I'm probably going to give you a hug and congratulate you and say, wow, that's a pretty good start, but I would right away move into the cautionary tale, right? Because I've a client who I got as a client after he won $1 million. It was an even million. Okay, so it wasn't 6 million. It was an even million, and he was in his 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing I asked him was, "How many friends did you gain?" Right. So if we go to that relationship piece of that pie, because that's the quickest thing you're going to gain after $6 million is you're going to gain a lot of friends.
Yeah.
And so we need to, at whatever age this person has won $6 million, is we need to protect that person who's won the lottery. Winning the lottery would bring some euphoria and it would bring some greatness, but I would say that learning is going to be the number one piece that you're going to need to do, because if you don't have trusted people around you, that $6 million is going to be gone very, very quick. I don't think it lasts 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're back at square one. So you need to be in a learning situation. So if you want that Ferrari, buy one Ferrari. Don't go buy 15 of them, right?
Yeah.
You have to learn that owning a Ferrari is extremely expensive to get the insurance and the registration for the Ferrari. It's extremely expensive to maintain the Ferrari. You now have to have a special place to put it. So now you're buying a bigger house that has a bigger garage, so you can have your Ferrari in there and you can have it, properly kept as you want to keep your Ferrari.
And you live in Moose Jaw and you work in Regina, so yeah, you're traveling that road every day in your Ferrari.
So you're probably going to want a second car, right? You're probably going to want a third car, but you don't want them all. So if we just take it without, because we can talk hypotheticals all day long, but there's a certain amount of money that no matter how much we get, that we're going to blow.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to throw it away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be part of the learning process. So I think setting that number very quickly is important. The
Mm-hmm.
quicker we can do that, the more the money is going to last us. So is it 10% and we save the other 90%? Is it 15%? We don't want to get too far beyond that scope, because when we settle down and the party's over and the hangover is now strong and in effect, we want to still have a lot of money, right?
Agreed.
So the learning component of that pie chart when it comes to winning the lottery is the biggest thing. A 25-year-old has a much bigger chance of surviving than the 18-year-old, but really, unless you're in your probably mid to late 30s and 40s, this is a high percentage of chance you're just not going to keep that money, because we want that play category big, but that relation category is going to explode on us. If you're if you're 18-year-old David and you've won the $6 million, you're probably going to have a lot of people chasing you, of whether it's for free drinks or whatnot. You're going to find you're going to have a lot of friends.
Correct. Which is actually why when people win the lottery, I was watching a news article recently. Some guy won the lottery and he showed up with a bunny costume with a mask on. All right. He didn't want anybody to know that, and everybody knew exactly why he did that. Everybody knew exactly why he did that. Look, scenario number 2. My great grand aunt Mabel has died and left me $600,000. Right? I am a 25-year-old guy. I have just gotten married and I have 2 beautiful little children. We need to move houses. Okay, so I want to buy a house, but then $600,000 is not going to cut it, right? For the
Right.
house that I want for my kids or whatever. Probably it would, depending, right? And so I need to invest so that eventually I will be able to buy that house. Now, we've talked about the difference between the GIC, which is a guaranteed income, and the optimize option. You want to keep up with inflation clearly, so the optimized option is probably the more attractive option. Now, obviously, people are going to say, go for the guaranteed, go for the guaranteed. What are the benefits of going the optimized route? I'm going to put that chart up again.
The first time we talked, and I'm not sure if the audience has seen the first one, but the first time we talked about two different parts of risk, and one being risk tolerance and the second one being risk capacity.
Yep.
And that's what this is going to come back to really quickly is if you have $600,000, that's a great amount of information, but it still doesn't give me a complete picture. Is I would be asking you a lot of questions. What is your income? Are you planning on working less? Are you planning on continuing to just live life like you were? But with $600,000 of, I'll say, found money, you now have a larger risk capacity. So I'm probably not necessarily just showing you the income portfolio. I'm probably showing you one of the other portfolios that has more risks. I know I didn't send you any other slides, but the income portfolio would be the safe part of your component of your overall portfolio. So this would just be one part of it. But I would back up and I would ask you about your great aunt Mabel and say, what was your relationship with her? How do you want
this area? Yeah.
Do you want some of this money to honor her? Like, do you want this to be a forever to honor Mabel? You've been given this great gift by her, and obviously then she thought highly of you and your relationship. So do you want some of this money to last in perpetuity, that survives you even? Do you want to set up some sort of a scholarship? Do you want to set up, so there's lots of things that need to drill into that conversation that isn't just a quick answer. And I'm always very self-aware that I use sometimes 17 words when I could have used 12. But I think more information, especially presented well, is better than less information, because I want you and your wife and your two beautiful children to have the best opportunity to use this money for how you want to use it. And that's going to change. It's not going to be, hey, I got this $600,000 on day one. We need to see it grow with you. So part of that component is going to be, we want to upgrade the house because we were struggling with the two children to live in our 2-bedroom apartment, let's say, right? So we know house prices have gone up and up. So how can we afford a better house while still keeping track of some of those other things we want to do with the money? So whether that's for our children's, those children's education, whether it's for a new vehicle for you and your wife, or maybe you only had a one vehicle family. There's just a lot of information, and that's going to be flushed out in having a fulsome conversation, which is related around this pie chart. Is the more I understand those parts of your life, and your life is now your wife and your children, then it helps me give you better advice. And the advice is never only one choice. I'm never going to say this is what you do and you only do this, right? Is the more we focus our conversation and we understand how everything is now and how we want it to be now that we got this new $600,000, we start writing a new story that you're the author, but I'm the co-author, or I'm ghostwriting that story for you from that financial perspective.
Understood. I have one more scenario for you. Like in the previous scenario, I have come into money. I have just been signed at a major firm. They gave me a signing bonus of 25 grand. Okay. As I don't know, a business administrator. When I get this 25 grand, I don't know. I may have passed business, but I failed economics, accounting, and everything related to figures. Right? Everything related to figures. So I come to you from the point of view of having a little bit of knowledge in that I know what I should do, but the minutia of it, the learning part of it is how does one say, fills me with trauma. Okay. because all I can remember is that macroeconomics class. I'm sure you remember macroeconomics back in school. You remember that course that
Yeah, of
everybody
course.
hates? Right.
Yep.
So, all right, all I can remember is that macroeconomics course, and I'm going to be thinking, you know what? I'm just going to leave it to the financial guy because there must be times when you have clients in front of you whose eyes glass over when it is that they're talking about this stuff because they think it's beyond their reach and so on. How do you make this information accessible to them? Your chart gives a very good breakdown of what it is that they want in terms of what they actually want. All right. So, how would you go about asking someone like that and getting an idea as a financial advisor using the holistic approach, what their needs are with regard to your services?
I think, David, first of all, I probably would ask them how they got into business administration when they clearly have a wild imagination with these three scenarios. So I'd wonder why they weren't into literary, maybe writing novels, and they could retire off writing novels, right?
Yeah.
Um, the conversation is never linear. It's never the same.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to point to one of these conversations or one of these pieces of pie with a client to have obviously that conversation. It's something that's ingrained in me at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So $25,000 signing bonus is a wonderful thing. First thing that I'm going to get out of the way is that's going to be taxable. Whereas the lottery win or the money from Great Aunt Mabel, both of those were tax free. So you actually had a lot more money than you realized. In the $25,000 signing bonus, this is a taxable situation.
Yeah.
So that's something that a lot of times people don't realize right off the hop. So I have to explain that to you, and maybe that breaks your heart a little bit, but we then have to talk about how we're going to mitigate or negate some of those taxes. So that's where we start looking at tax deferral mechanisms. That's perfectly legal. Tax deferral is legal in Canada. That would be a registered retirement savings plan or an RSP. So if we have the ability to tax shelter, say all $25,000, we're going to get a huge refund. And then we start planning what we're going to do with that refund that's going to help these pieces of the pie flourish, not only today, but into the future. So we can start that wealth building off with a good kick, a good shot in the shoulder. And we can get to that point that we've built some wealth and we're starting to manage wealth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people tend to think in terms of um, this stuff is beyond their reach. A lot of them tend to do so. So I'm assuming somebody who comes to you that knows what, with that scenario, knows what they have to do in terms of protecting their future. The how and the minutia is obviously going to be the major problem that they have because they have some knowledge, not a lot of it, and and just breaking things down into what their portfolio is going to comprise of, right? You mentioned something earlier on with regard to keeping up with inflation, an often overlooked parameter when people are planning their financial future. Because I know a lot of elderly people who thought they had it all covered, and to find out that inflation outpaced anything that they were trying to do, and then they end up struggling, and they thought, no, this is crazy. Because if you started your life back in, let's say, 1960s, the price of a house was negligible in Regina, Saskatchewan, from what I can gather. Okay? The price of a house now is something completely different. So if you are planning for the same amount of time and you're thinking, well, we're saving, we're putting this money away all the time, and then it's like you reach 75 when you can no longer do a lot about it, or probably you can, depending on how much wealth you're able to communicate to accumulate. But I just think that a lot of people get trapped with the inflation cycle. How important is inflation when you're considering your financial future?
We all go back to when we never used to talk about inflation, which is pre 2020. When the COVID pandemic happened, and society changed, and for the first time in lifetime, I think that we all lived, right? It was, I think, the last kind of pandemic that they closed things down was back in the 1930s, or even before that. So sorry, that was like pre 1920, I think, was the Spanish flu.
Mm-hmm.
So when we had this event that became everything, nobody could talk about anything else other than COVID. Things became clearer, and 2022 became the year of inflation. So we had COVID, where people couldn't work, but government was paying people to stay home to not work. And to do that, they were printing money. And if we print money without actual creating anything, we are creating inflation. So the more money you put into circulation, you've now created inflation, because you don't have anything else that backs it up. So we think in that moment, if we were the recipient of one of those federal programs, we thought, well, fantastic, I'm getting paid money. But getting paid money to do nothing creates massive amounts of inflation. So that was the first part, is printing money without really any guide rails to it. Second part of it was we had a global supply chain issue, because people weren't making money, and they were still spending it because the government was giving it. So we can go back, and this is very close history, right? We go back and people were still buying everything off Amazon and buying everything off the internet, and we quickly realized that we could no longer get things because everybody wanted them, and everybody all of a sudden had money to buy them, and nothing to do besides spend money. So these two events, COVID and then the global supply crisis, caused a huge issue where everything just started costing more and more and more money, right? So for the first time, inflation became a household term, because going to that grocery store, which was a big event, even to go there with a mask on and whatnot, all of a sudden became an event that was so expensive. We were starting to think, wait a minute, I can't go to the grocery store and buy that same T-bone steak. I can't go there and buy that same microwave popcorn without spending significantly more money.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, inflation, which the Bank of Canada always had a mandate to keep between 2 and 3%, all of a sudden became north of 7%. So markets went down in a sharp response to COVID. They went back up in a sharp response to the world's response to COVID. We had things that were, done well, but if you are not taking some risk on your money, you're risking inflation. And this was all the time. It just became a bigger thing during 2022, 2023, and still now today. If you're not taking some risk on your money with the markets, you're not keeping up with inflation. And therefore, you're going to work every day, and getting your 2% cost of living raise is really just keeping up with what cost of living used to increase. Now, with the extra inflation, you're actually getting a decrease in terms of real dollars and cents these years. So you have to understand these relationships. Why did inflation go up so much? And it absolutely has, in terms of real sense. So just to make this, I'll think, pretty simple, is if you had a 5% rate of return in your portfolio, but inflation at that same period was 3.5%. In terms of real dollars, you've only actually made a 1.5% gain on your portfolio.
Yeah.
But we tend to gloss that over and be like, "Whoa, I made 5%. 5% is wonderful." It can be, depending on your financial situation. So that's why having that specific conversation with you, whether it's you in the $6 million lottery win, you in the $600,000 Aunt Mabel scenario, or you signing that $25,000 signing bonus, it's a very different scenario for each and every person. So dealing with a financial advisor, it doesn't need to be me, dealing with wealth manager, any of those things, it's worth your time. Interview some different people, make it so you two can understand each other, spend that time, because your financial future starts today, right? So if you don't understand inflation, and you don't understand how that's eroding your purchasing power and possibly your raise or lack thereof raise, you need to start having those conversations. The longer you put it off, that 18-year-old became that 25-year-old becomes that 48-year-old right here. If you didn't start planning for some of those events, your financial future is just murky. It's not clear. Whereas my job is to put that under the microscope and turn those dials and make that slide very, very clear, right? I want that financial future for you, David, or for anybody else to be clear. And inflation is a lengthy conversation. We can do it with a few slides, and I think time is just important to spend with somebody.
Yeah, I think that would be part of our next talk. Yeorgo, this has been very, very informative. I definitely want to have you back on because this is something that people definitely need to hear from. This kind of information is like not given, it's not something that you discuss around a dinner table, normally speaking, right? This is some highly specialized information, and people need to hear this kind of stuff, as opposed to the usual stuff. Well, plan for your future, invest in a GIC. I see some of these commercials on YouTube right now. Okay, because the social media is always tracking. Invest in this, invest in that, and the thing about it, it makes everything seem so easy, right? You see people running in a field with their kids and a dog, usually a golden retriever, as I said before, and everybody's all happy with themselves and so on. And there are aspects to this which people don't generally tend to understand, and this is why we're doing this series. So, Yeorgo, first of all, thank you. Give these people some way to get a hold of you if they want to.
Absolutely. I think, do you have my email address you can put up on the screen?
I did, but you could just call it out for me.
Sure, I'll say it again. So my email address is my first name, YEORGO dot TRAIFOROS. So first name dot last name at OWM.com. So optimizewealthmanagement.com.
Okay, I will absolutely put your email address in the description. Guys, if you are thinking about contacting a financial advisor, Yeorgo is the person for you for sure, because I can tell you right now, he's very good at what he does, as you guys have seen in the last 45 minutes. So contact Yeorgo first of all, and for those of you who are interested in other episodes like this, just email me your concern and your questions. We'll be doing another one of these. You can email me at info@onexxa.com. Okay, Yeorgo, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate the opportunity to spread some knowledge.
Thank you. Take care.